Okay, picture this. We're going way back, 100 million years. Upper Cretaceous swamps of North Africa. Forget any modern swamp, you know. This place is intense, thick, humid air, and danger everywhere. You've got these massive dinosaurs dominating the landscape, but lurking alongside them. Another kind of apex predator, one that messes with everything you probably think a crocodile is.
Yeah, it's crucial to set the scene for you, this ecosystem. It was arguably one of the most dangerous, maybe the most dangerous in Earth's history. Seriously, you had giants like Carcharodontosaurus, that's a 12-meter beast with teeth like knives patrolling the edges. Then there's the ground shaking from Egyptosaurus, a huge titanosaur, and of course the famous one, Spinosaurus, that massive sail-backed predator, part dinosaur, part, well, aquatic terror.
Right. And sharing that lethal turf was this whole forgotten family of reptiles. We call them crocodilomorphs. It's the big family tree, includes modern crocs, but also all their extinct and sometimes very weird relatives. So today, we're doing a deep dive into that lost world. We're going to focus on some of the most, aggressively strange ones, like Kaprosuchus, the boar crocodile. And believe it or not, its vegetarian cousins.
And our mission here is kind of fascinating in itself. How did paleontologists figure all this out? We're talking about reconstructing these creatures, sometimes from surprisingly little evidence. How they figured out one croc relative might have run like a wolf and another one, munched on plants like a giant rodent. It really does flip the whole modern idea of a crocodile on its head.
Okay, let's start with the big one, the terror, Kaprosuchus. It's got a reputation, but it's also super mysterious. The name itself, Boar Crocodile, gives you a hint. But the really shocking part, how little fossil material we actually have.
That's exactly right. Almost everything we think we know about Kaprosuchus, it comes down to one single skull, found in Niger. About 60 centimeters long. That's pretty much it. So it's this incredible piece of detective work, of extrapolation, trying to figure out the size, the behavior of potentially a multi-ton animal from, basically just its head.
So just the skull.
Yeah.
How do you even start estimating the size from that? Because, there's a world of difference between a, say, 3-meter animal and a 6-meter monster, right?
Yeah, it involves a lot of comparative anatomy. That's the key methodology. You look at specific skull features, things like the occipital condyle, that's the bony bit connecting the skull to the neck vertebrae. You compare that structure, the jaw length, the overall robustness of the skull bones to its closest known relatives.
Yeah.
Things like Mahajungasuchus, which we have more complete fossils of. So while some early guesses might have put it up at 6 meters, the current thinking, based on those comparisons, leans more towards a solid 3, maybe 4 meters long. Still huge, and definitely bulky enough to support those incredible teeth.
Ah, yes, the teeth. The tusks. That's why it gets the boar croc nickname, isn't it? These huge teeth sticking way out above and below the jaw. That just screams, not your average croc, doesn't it? That doesn't sound like something passively waiting in the water.
That's an excellent point. It challenges the typical image. If it were just lying in wait underwater like a Nile croc, you'd expect conical teeth. Good for gripping slippery prey, holding on, maybe tearing. But Kaprosuchus teeth, they were different. Long, sharp-edged, almost blade-like, and pointed somewhat forwards. That kind of shape is built for slicing, for impact. It really does suggest a more active, maybe terrestrial hunter.
And the skull shape itself seems to back that up, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Especially the eye sockets. They aren't perched on top like modern crocs used to peek out of the water.
Exactly. The eye placement is a huge clue. Kaprosuchus had eyes set much more forward on its head. That forward position is critical. It suggests stereoscopic vision, overlapping fields of view, which means
Depth perception, like a predator that chases things down.
precisely. You need depth perception if you're hunting at speed, making complex moves on land. Think wolves, big cats, a modern alligator. It mainly needs to judge distance while sitting still. Kaprosuchus, maybe it needed to calculate trajectories while sprinting.
Okay, so teeth like a runner, eyes like a runner. What about, protection? If this thing is charging prey, it must have needed some kind of armor, right?
Absolutely. And the snout gives us more clues there. Now, its nostrils were facing upwards, which does suggest it spent time in water, like other crocs. But the snout itself seems to have been covered in this thick, rugged sheet of keratin, really tough. And this probably wasn't just for show. It was likely protection, specifically protection against high-speed impacts, hitting prey hard. So yeah, it wasn't just waiting patiently. It sounds like it was actively colliding with its meals.
Okay, but wait. If the nostrils are facing up for water, but the eyes are forward for land, does that create a bit of a conflict? How do we reconcile that?
That's a really sharp observation, and it's part of the ongoing discussion. We know its closest relative, Mahajongasuchus, was definitely semi-aquatic. So the best picture we have right now, Kaprosuchus was probably an opportunistic amphibious hunter. It likely spent a good amount of time in or near the water. But with those specialized eyes, maybe longer legs than modern crocs, though we don't have the leg bones and that armored snout. If something tasty wandered too close on the bank, it could explode out of the water and give chase on land, a high-speed pursuit predator when needed.
Which brings us to that other wild idea about its behavior. The boar part of its name might be even more literal, right? Using those tusks in the snout to actually dig.
Exactly. That's a fascinating hypothesis. Think about the power needed to support tusks that big, combined with that keratin padding on the snout. It could mean Kaprosuchus wasn't just chasing prey, but maybe actively rooting it out, digging into riverbanks, maybe shallow burrows, looking for lungfish or other animals, kind of like a giant predatory boar.
Wow. It's just incredible how much diversity there was back then. We think crocodile and picture, the Nile croc or the alligator, slow, aquatic ambush predators. But that's just a tiny sliver of what this group, the crocodilomorphs, used to be.
It really is. It tells you ancient life was just, well, stranger and more varied than today in many ways. These ancient croc relatives filled almost every ecological niche imaginable. They evolved all sorts of body plans, different diets, anything the dinosaurs weren't already doing. It seems like some crocodilomorph tried it. Honestly, if you look at the whole lineage over hundreds of millions of years, our modern crocs, they're kind of the weird outliers, not the norm.
Okay, so let's pivot completely. Let's go to the other end of the weirdness spectrum, the rat croc. If Kaprosuchus was this terrifying, potentially 6-meter boar thing, then Araripesuchus rattoides, the rat croc, was tiny by comparison, maybe a meter long, like a big capybara.
About that size, yeah. And this is where things get really wild diet-wise. The evidence we have strongly suggests the rat croc was an obligate herbivore, a plant-eating crocodile relative, a vegetarian croc.
A vegetarian croc? How on earth do they figure that out? I mean, that just sounds wrong.
It sounds totally counterintuitive, right? But it comes down to the teeth and jaws again, in really fine detail. Forget those conical gripping teeth. The rat croc had these long, sort of projecting buck teeth in its lower jaw, almost like a rodent's incisors, probably really useful for clipping off tough vegetation. And then the back teeth.
Okay, but couldn't it have just been an omnivore? Nibbled some plants sometimes? How do we know it was that was its main thing?
Good question. It's about the whole dental toolkit and the wear patterns. It had serrated edges on its cheek teeth, but it lacked the big canine-like teeth you need for grabbing and holding struggling prey. And crucially, studies on the wear facets, the worn-down surfaces on the teeth, show patterns consistent with grinding or shearing, like processing fibrous plant matter. Modern crocs don't really chew, they just gulp down chunks. This little guy seems to have been built specifically to break down plants.
Okay, mind blown. A plant-eating croc relative. And I bet it didn't move like a modern croc either, did it? A vegetarian needs to be able to move around and forage.
Exactly right. The rat croc and some of its close relatives had what we call high-stance locomotion. Their legs weren't sprawled out to the sides like an alligator's. They were positioned directly underneath the body, more like a dog or, a rodent. This gave them the ability to trot, maybe even run pretty effectively on land, much more mobile. And this upright stance wasn't totally unique in the family tree either. Remember Kaprosuchus from way back in the Triassic? That was a croc relative that walked fully upright, looked almost like a dinosaur. Shows how adaptable this lineage was.
Which leads to the ultimate question about movement. True bipedalism, walking only on 2 legs. Here, the rat croc could maybe stand up on its hind legs sometimes, like a dog begging for food. But were there any croc relatives that truly walked on just 2 legs all the time?
Yes, it seems there were. And this is amazing because the best evidence isn't from bones, but from footprints. Trace fossils. We use a special term for classifying fossil tracks ichnospecies, not based on the animal itself, but its tracks. And in the Cretaceous period, we find tracks called Batrachopus. Particularly stunning examples come from places like New England and even South Korea.
South Korea. What do those tracks show?
They're really compelling. They show prints from an animal maybe 3 meters long, so pretty big, with legs potentially as long as a human's. And the tracks themselves tell the story. They're very narrow, clearly showing something walking on just 2 legs, no sign of front footprints touching down. And this is key, no tail drag marks, which you often see with early bipedal dinosaurs. Plus, the shape of the foot itself, the heel imprint, how the toes are arranged, it screams crocodilian, not dinosaur. So yeah, a 3-meter croc relative walking around on 2 legs like us.
That's That's just wild. So wrapping this all up, what's the big takeaway for you, the listener? If you remember one thing from this deep dive, maybe it's this. Our modern idea of a crocodile is incredibly narrow. It's just one surviving branch. Go back 100 million years, and the crocodilomorphs were everywhere, doing everything. They were runners on land, dedicated plant eaters, boar-tusked predators, maybe even burrowers, and yes, even bipedal walkers. They evolved to look and act like wolves, boars, rodents. Life finds ways, often totally unexpected ones.
And it beautifully highlights convergent evolution, doesn't it? You had dinosaurs evolving, some croc-like features like Spinosaurus becoming more aquatic, and at the same time you had croc relatives evolving very dinosaur-like features like Batrachopus walking tall on land.
It really makes you rethink those neat little boxes we put animals into today.
It absolutely does. So, Hippie, let's leave you with a final thought to chew on, something to ponder. Given all this incredible diversity, this blurring of lines back in the Cretaceous, you had these two major reptile groups, dinosaurs and crocodilomorphs, living side by side in these intense environments. And they ended up evolving to look and act remarkably similar in some cases. Why? Was it the specific challenges of that swampy world, the types of food available, or just the most efficient body plans for survival? The environment demanded certain kinds of creatures, and it seems both families came up with similar answers. That's a mystery that keeps unfolding long after we finish talking.